Okay, everyone, we are back. Um, Once again, my name is Thiago. I'm with Logz.io, part of the customer success team. First, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. And we hope today's webinar will help you getting more from Logz.io and from your logs as well. Our plan is to have a recurring monthly webinar like this, which will help our new users starting with the solution. Plus, whoever is actually exploring the tool as well may actually be able to get a glimpse of what's going on with the tool. If you're new to the solution, again, this would be a good opportunity for you to learn some best practices. And we really hope that you can use your logs even further after this session. Before we even start and I actually go into the agenda, I actually want to ask everybody a quick question. Our goal for today is to be in 3 specific topics, but I'm going to launch a poll right now, and please, I would love to hear from you guys. Like, what would be the most interesting topic for you at this point? Would it be shipping and parsing? You're just starting with the tool. Would it be around searching and filtering your data? Would be around visualizations and dashboards? Or is there other topics within the tool that you potentially would be interested? And if so, that potentially it's something we can explore and kind of hear your feedback and try to understand what we can do in the future. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a couple more, a few minutes here, a couple of seconds actually, and then we'll stop it and we'll take it from there. All right, 2 more seconds and we'll take it from here. All right, let me close it and let me share the results. So looks like the majority of you guys are truly interested around shipping and parsing. A few of you guys are hoping to learn more about searching and filtering and visualization. So it looks like when we sent the invites out, of course, we did speak about those 3 topics. So it looks like we are on par with that. However, we do have other webinars that talk about other features that we have. So of course, if you guys are interested in learning more about those, we'd be happy to have a webinar about it. But let's take it from there. It's interesting that we are having more and more people interested in shipping and parsing. I think we are planning to have a webinar dedicated for this piece alone. I will be today covering out 3, but I'll make sure that I will go deep dive a little bit more on the shipping and the parsing and the options that you currently have with the tool, so we can you can learn a little bit more about that space as well. All right. Excellent. So let's go back to our agenda. So of course today we will start with shipping and parsing. From there we're going to go into searching and filtering, and then from there we're going to jump into visualizations and dashboards. In your window you will have a option to actually ask questions. We have someone fielding those questions and answering them live during this webinar. However, I will also answer some of those questions towards the end, if time allows, of course. So we'll leave that for last. However, if you do ask any questions that are not necessarily covered during the webinar or even during the chat, what we will actually do is we will reach out to you directly over email and make sure that we actually get your questions answered. So please feel free to start, and we'll take it from there. So before I go into the webinar itself and start looking into Logz.io, I'd like to share with you how you actually can get support and training if you're currently a Logz.io customer. So all of you, if you log into Logz.io, you will see there is a little bubble on the right-hand side. That's our intercom. And by clicking on that, you can actually get directly to our support team. The support team is 24/7. And by clicking on that, you can ask any questions. If you're just starting with the tool, or if you actually need help with something you were building, we'd be more than happy to assist. If you prefer email, please email us at help@logz.io, or we also have the self-support site at docs.logz.io. From here, I also want to make sure you guys are aware of another resource that we have built for you all called the Academy. By going to academy.logz.io, you will actually be able to get classes on how to start using the solution. We have some ebooks on guides on how to, and also every single other webinar that we have held in the past will be able to be found there as well. So please feel free to go to academy.logz.io. And even after this recording, particularly after this whole webinar is done, we will be posting this webinar as part of this group of webinars that we have there. So this will be a resource for you as well. Okay, so let's start. Since the main topic for you guys is login and shipping, and that's exactly where we're going to start. So a question that we usually get, I actually have heard this from our support guys a lot, is that what is the ideal shipper? So choosing the ideal shipper is a big key here. As you can see, ideal is between quotes because ideal is a very broad word when choosing a shipper. There is not necessarily an ideal shipper. There's the ideal shipper for your environment. So understanding the options that Logz.io actually offers is actually the best option that you have. So let's go to Logz.io. So once you log into your account, you're going to see something very similar to this. You're going to be in Kibana, and you're going to see the Discover tab. On the top right here, we have the login shipping options that Logz.io offer. And here are the platforms that we currently offer today. So let's start with the libraries that we have. The reason I start here is because if you are shipping any code to Logz.io, we do recommend you using an appender. So as you can see, we have a variety of appenders that you can tie directly into your code, which will help you optimizing the shipping of everything that you're creating. As you're actually releasing new code, those logs will be shipped to Logz.io directly, and there's a lot of advantages to do it this way. I think what a big one is that whenever you deploy the code, the logs will be shipped to Logz.io. No extra needed configuration is needed. So if you have access to the code itself, please come here, take a look at it, see if it's a language that is currently supported. If not, feel free to reach out to our support team. We're always interested in hearing what other options you would like to see here. However, if you're not currently using any of those languages, this is an option for you to potentially make a switch and make your shipping a little more efficient as well. All right, the second option I want to cover is the log shippers. So if you do not have control over the code and you have to write those logs to file, those logs are written to file, choosing a log shipper is ideal. So as you can see, we have a variety of shippers as well. We have FileBeat, RSysLogs, FluentD, Logstash, and so on. We do personally recommend FileBeat. FileBeat is a very light shipper. Plus, if you're starting with log shipping, we do have a configuration wizard that will help you configure this, the FileBeat YAML file. So we actually can help you simplify things by choosing one. We do also recommend using FluentD in case you're using Kubernetes, or in case you are also dealing with network devices. RSyslog and FluentD is a better option, so I would recommend you going that route as well. However, if you also have a tight environment and a specific log shipper needs to be used, again, we don't restrict you using one over the other. Just keep in mind that choosing one of those could be ideal for you. All right. From there, if you do have a Docker environment, we do have shippers for Dockers. So if this is something that you would like to further explore, come here, look at the options that we have. They are pretty simple to be configured and installed, and not much here. But if you do have any problem with the Docker environment here or installing anything, please feel free to reach out to our support team. We'd be happy to assist. I want to quickly mention something under applications, more on this Kubernetes. This is actually something we are seeing more and more. Since more and more people are looking into Kubernetes itself, we do have a shipper for Kubernetes. You can come here. It's made in FluentD, so you have this daemon set, and you should be able to quickly follow our instructions here. Just want to make sure that you are aware of this option. All right. In addition, we have a big options when it comes to AWS. So if your environment is AWS, we have a lot of pre-configured log shipping instructions for a lot of the environments you currently have. But basically, it comes down to two options that we have here. One is the S3 buckets. By coming to S3 buckets, if you have any logs being ingested and actually stored in S3, I would recommend you coming here, quick configuration, and you're good to go. Another option, of course, is using Lambda, and instructions generally are here, and a lot of the other instructions that we have around shipping other methods are also done in Lambda. So we will have instructions for you step by step. So if you have a specific environment, stuff is not being stored in S3, it could be ideal for you to ship directly from AWS to us. The last one I want to mention is this is something new. We're expanding our Azure shipping methods. Today we have the Event Hub. This is something that we released actually last month. So if you do have an Azure environment and you might be shipping logs in maybe in a different way, feel free to come here, take a look at what we are offering today. We are looking into having a webinar around Azure and how to optimize that environment within Logz.io. So please stay tuned and we will help you with that as well. Once again, if you do choose a shipping method and you have trouble running any of those right here, as mentioned, right on this section right here, we have this little chat bubble. Feel free to come to our support team, ask any questions. We'll be happy to assist you checking what you're doing in case you run into any problems. All right, so let me actually run through a simple file beat configuration because there is some specific things when installing any shipper that is actually very important to you. So as you can see here by our logging to success option, we defining type. Whenever choosing, whenever choosing any shipper or configuring a shipper to ship to Logz.io, defining type is very important, and also excluding logs sometimes is something that you will want to do. So let's go over that in particularly. Defining type. What is type? So basically, type is a logical field in Elasticsearch that is used to separate different documents from one another. All right. So whenever choosing type, you should always choose type by log format, not source. So to give you as an example, right here on this YAML file for file beat, I would define type right here, right on this line right there. So whenever shipping any logs to us, you will have to define a type. A type will come into play. I will show you guys how that is actually important whenever searching for logs, whenever creating alerts or visualizations. But this is a field that every shipper that we have will have to be configured. So as an example, if you're shipping Apache logs to us, make sure to choose Apache as the type. It doesn't matter that you have different machines in different locations shipping Apache logs. The format of the logs are the same. So this is how you want to use this field. Also, when I mention excluding logs, what you have here is on this configuration, you actually can add additional configuration fields, which will allow you to configure the shipper to potentially exclude logs from being shipping to Logz.io. So let's say you're shipping Apache logs. And however, you're not interested in 200 errors, just because you know the 200 responses are things that are actually working. And nobody's actually using that for BI, it's mainly for troubleshooting. So something you could do is actually include something on your configuration file that exclude those logs from being shipped, which then saves the space when shipping logs to us. Because one of the things that is very important, as you know, you have so much space, you're generating a lot of logs, and what you want to do is not necessarily ship everything unless everything is actually needed. So if you do need help on excluding logs when shipping logs to us, please reach out to our support team. We'd be happy to send you the instructions for it. But for FileBeat in particularly, at the end of this webinar, in the following days, we will send a recap email, and I'll make sure to include the prospectors for FileBeat in particularly to assist you configuring the exclude lines as well. All right. Okay. Next, let's talk about data parsing. So when it comes to shipping, I believe I covered the ways to ship logs to Logz.io. Now your logs are hitting our servers, and now they're being indexed in Elasticsearch, and you chose the proper type. Next step is to parse your data. So basically, what is data parsing? Data parsing is the process of analyzing text, of course I'm reading from here, and transforming its content into fields that can be searched via Kibana. So let's take a quick look at it. All right, so let's go into Kibana. If I go into Kibana, one of the things you will see is that I have some fields listed right here, available fields, and those fields are there because they were generated by the shipper itself, or they were parsed during the process of ingestion. So if I look for the field type, as I mentioned, what this will help me understand is that I will see for the top 500 values that I currently have, of the 500 records that I have, I will see the top responses that I have, or the top values that are actually showing within my logs. So as you can see on our demo environment, it's services, my firewall, S3 access, Apache, and my secret apps. Of course, we are sending a lot more. And if I want to quickly take a look into that, what I can do is just click visualize, and that will take me right into all available fields. And also, I'm sorry, not the fields themselves, the values of those fields. And here in particularly, I'm looking at the last 15 minutes of my logs. And on the bottom right here, I see in a descending order by quickly looking at this bucket. The field is type, and I see the types of logs that I'm sending. I will deep dive into building visualizations like this, but I want to make sure that you understood quickly how you can actually just see the values beyond 500. So going back to Discover, I can look at my type, and the types are right there. All right. So why data parsing is so important? Because data parsing will assist you breaking down the log message and be able to easily search your logs. Let me go back into this presentation. So why parse my logs? Easily display and filter data, create visualizations, and set up and configure alerts, as I already mentioned. So how can you start parsing your logs? First is that if you have control on how you're generating those logs, generating them in JSON, so using a JSON format of logs will automatically parse the logs in Logz.io. The reason is because JSON is native to Elastic. If I kind of go back here, if I look into any of my logs, I can click on this little tab here and look at the JSON format of those logs. So if you are sending those logs this way, they will be automatically parsed, and the field will be created, and everything will be exactly the way you are creating. So if you want full control of your logs, if you can switch to JSON, that's ideal. I have worked with other customers that they were potentially exploring those options since they were coming to Elasticsearch, and Logz.io was their choice. I told them like that would be a very smart move, explain to them the benefits, and from there they actually have invested the time because they know how logging is important to them, and having control over it is also important to you. The second one is that we have a list of support log types. So I already have this opened right here. So if you remember when I mentioned you can choose your log type, and I mentioned Apache, if you do send something as an Apache log or Apache access or however format we have listed here, what Logz.io will do for you is that Logz.io will automatically parse those logs and enrich the data for you as well. We have a list of log types that are currently supported by us, and they are parsed right out of the box. I will be sharing this list with you all at the end of the webinar as well, so do not worry about copying this link, which is actually pretty long. But if you do have one of those log types, please feel free to send it as one of those log types, and they will be parsed out of the box. If by any reason the types of logs you're shipping to us does not have the normal standard format, what you can always do is send something as custom. For example, if you send under Apache, but you want to parse that data yourself, what you can always do is send as type Apache _ custom, and our system will not identify it. That's just a quick tip for you guys in case you guys are looking to do that right away. All right, and then kind of going back, and the last option is parsing as a service. The way we break that down is that we have two options. The first one, as you can see in the little graph right here, but I'll show you in the tool as well, is that we have a data parsing wizard. And also, you can contact our support team, and we'll create the parsing rules for you. We'll parse the data for you. Keep in mind that is part of the service. You were paying for that as part included with Logz.io. So you don't have to learn to parse your logs anymore. Or maybe there was someone who is assigned to parse logs. I'm not sure. I have heard some stories that sometimes if anything new needed to be parsed, whenever some companies had their own ELK internally, someone was actually the one responsible for parsing logs, and they actually had to create a ticket and send it to a team, and someone would actually look into it, and eventually would take weeks and weeks and weeks. With our support team, all you have to do is click on a little chat bubble. They're going to ask you 4 questions. Please give us some simple logs, an explanation of how you want to parse those logs, the time zone of the timestamp in the logs, and what is the type. Once again, type came into play. So the key thing here, everything is pretty simple, is number 2. Tells us how you want your logs to be parsed, and we'll parse it for you. Pretty simple. Click on the chat bubble, send us an email. A lot of times I have worked with other customers who are worried about time. I tell you to test our support team. Start a chat, ask them to parse something for you. I guarantee you, you'll be satisfied with the response time that we have. Plus, our support team, they're specialized on this. They do this every day, so they're efficient. Parsing your logs in an efficient way can optimize the way your logs are ingested. The slower your parsing process is, the longer it takes for your logs to be ingested. So our goal is to have your logs available to you as soon as possible. So using our support team is ideal because we also keep an eye on the parsing that has been created even by us. And if anything is slow, our support team actually gets a message to tell them to look into it and actually optimize your process as well. So we take your parsing very, very responsibly, and we would be happy to assist you with that. So let's go back into Kibana here and start exploring a little bit more. So if you do have any questions before I dive into the searching and a little further into parsing, please feel free to reach out to our support team if you haven't used them before, and let us help you parsing your logs for you. Okay, let's dive in on how this parsing will assist you. So whenever training someone on how to use Logz.io, I always start with search because, of course, every developer, when developing solutions, they are searching their logs. Usually that's the easiest way. And eventually what we want to do is kind of create visualization so you can better monitor the environment as well. But one of the key things about Kibana is that Kibana is very simple. What you want to do is do a lot of that work up front. When I say that work up front, is actually parsing your logs. The more you parse your logs, the easier it will be to search them. And the easier it will be to train anyone who is new to the solution as well. So when your data is parsed, you can actually search everything with the click of a button. So for today's webinar, what I'm going to do is actually focus on the ELB logs. So as you can see, I have a list of available fields right here. I want to search my ELB logs. So what I'm going to do is click on type. And from there, that list is once again available. I see ELB is listed right here. Next to each value that I have on type, you see there is a little magnifying glass with a plus and a minus. What those are called positive and negative filters. By clicking on the positive filter as an example, what this will do is add a filter to the top of Kibana, which now tells me that I'm looking for type, which is ELB. If I want to further explore what's the logic here, I can click on the edit filter, and I will see that the filter logic is type is ELB. If I wanted to create this from scratch, I can just easily click on the add filter, type the word type, choose it, choose an operator. The one I'm currently using is, could use not or one of or whatever the case may be, and just type the value that I'm looking for. Once I save it, of course, that filter already existed, it will be there. If I want to switch something from is to is not, I can also exclude the matches or make that a negative filter. As you can see, not type ELB, and so on and so forth. And by clicking on this edit filter, I once again will have the options right there. Another thing is this label. Sometimes I'm asked about this. This is in case you're designing something that you want to be easily understandable by people who are new to the tool. So for example, ELB, I could do something like ELB logs, and by saving it, it just names the filter for me, simplifying the process of people looking into this. But I can once again just click on the plus, and now what I'm looking at is ELB logs. Excellent. All right, so one thing that is very important is the under available fields. What I have listed here, those are all the available fields that are currently listed on the logs on my list of available logs. So what I have filtered right now is ELB. Once again, type is ELB. So if I expand any of those logs and I search for type, they will be ELB. And one of the things you also notice is that next to every single available field that I have here, there is 4 icons now. The little plus, which is the filter in, the filter out, the negative filter, and I also have a toggle to column. So let's actually click on this and see what will happen. So by clicking on that, what you will notice is that a new column has been added called type, and right there I see all the values that are coming through. So what I could do is design something that I want to keep an eye on it, and this is once again the advantage of parsing your logs, because this will be parsed data. And let's say I want to keep an eye on my status codes. What I can do is actually click on this, and I also want to keep an eye on requests. I want to see where those requests are coming from, and I can click on that. So now what I can do is I don't want type because I know my type is already filtered. I'm going to remove that, and I want to prioritize the request and also the backend errors that I'm getting. So as you can see, I can design something, the columns to look exactly the way I want it. And I can come here, as you can see, I can move around by moving the columns. I can X something out. If I don't want the message field, I can erase that as well. And from here, I can design something exactly the way I want to look. But I go, all right, as I mentioned before, maybe you are shipping 200 error responses because it's necessary, but maybe yourself, you don't care for them. So not only now is as part of the column, I see this plus and minus. So what I can do is click on that minus, and now what I'm doing is I do not want backend status codes 200, and now I only see anything that is not 200 errors. Another way to use this as well is whenever handling a field that's numerical, the way you know something is numerical is by looking at the field type itself. If you notice, there is a little T next to it or a little sharp. What the T means is that this is a string and the values could be alphanumerical. While when I have a little sharp, that means this is a numerical value. One of the things that I want to show you again is when adding in this filter, the options that I have is not, one of, and so on and so forth. If I actually go on something that is numerical, like the backend status code, I will notice that I also have the is in between and is not in between. Okay, what this allows me to do is make a search within a certain range. As an example, if I say it's not in between, I want something from, let's say, whatever is under 200 or whatever number up to 399. So what I could do is do a 399. If I save it, you will see that it will say infinity to 399. Same thing, I could do that in reverse. I could edit this, do 399, and reverse this, and add nothing. It will say from 399 to infinity. So whenever handling this, or I can just actually add the values myself. So whenever actually using the filter, if you are dealing with numerical values, once again, by seeing the little sharp here, you can exclude anything that you potentially don't care about. So let's say you're looking for response times, all right? So your logs are also sending a response time. This is actually very common for me to hear from people. They're sending us Apache logs. Sometimes they want to understand if the requests on certain pages are reaching, let's say, 5 seconds or above 3 seconds, or whatever the case may be, whatever your cadence is. What you can do here is just exclude anything that's under and filter that data out. Very simple way to do it. Also, by further looking into this, I created the columns exactly the way I want it. The last thing I want to show you is what is the last icon right there. So if I go backend processing time, as I just mentioned, in this case was 148.82. I actually don't know what this means. If it's in seconds, most likely it's milliseconds, but whatever the case may be. So let's say I want to make sure that the backend processing time, it's something that is coming through my logs. All right. So what I can do is click on this right here. As you can see, is the filter for the field is present, which means is that this field needs to exist and a value also needs to exist. So by clicking on this, what I have done now, it's added another filter on the top that says backend processing time must exist. So let's look into that to see how this filter actually looks. By clicking on the edit, I once again have right there exists if there is no necessary value, and from there I can actually change to whatever, or does not exist, or whatever the case may be. So once again, the 4 icons next to it is positive filter, negative filter, add to column, or I want something to exist. All right. So whenever training someone, once again, I do start with a filter. I will make sure that we are properly parsing their data. So if you need help parsing your data, please reach out to us. And then from here, as you can see, it's very easy to start training someone. The advantage that we see here as well, as hopefully you were able to see, is that if I start typing something, I will have the fields already generated for me. I can say is, and then from there, I can also get values as I type them in, depending what the type of field they are. So very powerful way to train someone and be able to start seeing what's happening to your logs. As you can see on the top here as well, I have a count. It shows me how it's coming within a certain time frame and so on and so forth. So the next thing I would do is I can potentially save this. I want to see my ELB logs, and I want to see anything that is not in the 300 range below. From there, I can just come here, click save, give it a name, ELB. Let me start with webinar actually, so I know exactly which one is mine, ELB, and save. But before I move forward on the search mechanics, as you can see right above the filtering, there's also options to search manually. Right next to it, there are some examples right here, status 200 and PHP extension is PHP. So I want to kind of talk a little bit on the basic searches, basic concept of searches, and how they kind of imitate the add filter and how you can do it depending on how you prefer to do so. So let's create something very similar to what we have on the bottom right here. Okay. So as you can see, type is ELB. So if I want to not use the filter, but I want to do exact the same search, all I would do is type the word type, followed by a column, and type the value itself. And I'm typing ELB, enter. So basically, this filter that I have on the bottom and this search that I have on the top, they are exactly the same. One thing that's very important to understand is that whenever looking at your logs, you have something called the message field. I'm going to dive into that, into the search in a little bit. But you also have everything that's parsed. There's something called the analyze and non-analyzed field. I'm not going to dive into the details of that, but I will send everybody the documentation that we internally have as well on that. However, what an analyzed field and non-analyzed field can do for you is that the non-analyzed field, which is everything but the message field, once again, the message field is the only analyzed field that we have. Everything else is non-analyzed. What a non-analyzed field requires is that you match the result exactly as it's coming in. As an example, Type is ELB. It's all lowercase letters. If I erase this, this type is ELB. It works. I'm actually getting ELB logs. If I was to type ELB, all capitals, I will get no results because it does not match. That's how a non-analyzed field works. The analyzed field, on the other hand, which is the message field, we actually break down the message field and everything becomes tokenized. It's actually a very complex thing to go into details. So what I'm going to do once again is send you guys details of how we tokenize the message field. But basically what we can do is, looking at the message field, we are able to search for something regardless of how they are created. So for example, I have a production right here, all right? So let's say I want to also search for the word production, and I go and production. I understand it wasn't spelled, and I see right here is production is showing up. However, if I do search with a capital P, it still finds production for me, okay? The reason actually finding that word as well, regardless if it's capital P or not capital P, is because it's within the message field and it's called an analyzed field, all right? If you'd like to learn more about this and the details, once again, I'll send you guys some documentation, but feel free to reach out to our support team. But the power of actually having this analyzed field in the message field, because sometimes not everybody knows how things are being generated, and you can easily start searching things with wildcards, or you're searching for a small word, and all of a sudden you're actually going to expand from there, and so on and so forth. So for example, I can come here and type production and finish with a wildcard. I know, for example, it's potentially production. As you can see, our production was misspelled. So all of a sudden I can use a wildcard, because if I actually type production, I probably won't find anything. So I'm like, maybe someone misspelled it, and all of a sudden I can use a wildcard and I can start a word and I will be able to find it. So there is a lot of power in using this analyze field. All right, so if you would like to understand a little bit more, we did have a webinar specifically around this topic. I would recommend you looking into it. If you go to our academy, once again, you will see this webinar, in particularly on Kibana searches. We actually had 2 videos. One was Kibana in the basics, so you can skip that. Go into the advanced one, you will be able to learn more about it. All right, cool. So let's go back into the search. So now I have type ELB, and I have a filter that's not backend status. One thing to keep in mind about the filtering system right here is that the filtering system always works with the AND statement, meaning if I have not backend status code, it's not between 0 and 399, and I add another filter, this will work exactly as an AND statement, okay? What I mean by that is that this has to be true and this has to be true. But sometimes you want something that is not necessarily that way. All right, what you will have to do is using the booleans in the search itself. So booleans today are the words and, okay, the word or, and the word not. Now, I'm not sure if you were able to see this as I was doing it, but every time I typed the boolean, it was capitalized. We even had a webinar that one of our customers came in and mentioned this. Please always capitalize the booleans and, or not. If you were to make a mistake and you come here and type and, the way search works is that if I type right here, type ELB space and the word and, I'm actually, the space right here means a end already. So if I do this, it's the same thing as just having that space. At least it should. I should have actually done this. Okay, there you go. And right there, and I actually can get the value and as a result. All right. So what you want to do is make sure that it's always capitalized. And if I'm using a boolean, I make sure that I will say or has the word, let's say, and you will start searching for every single log that actually has type ELB or end and not back end. And the reason at that point when I did this, I got 0 is because there is no probably value that comes from there. And there you go. Okay. So as you can see, typing this end or just the space, it will work the same way. Very good. Or you can say not end, and all of a sudden I will search for not the end. So another way for you to search the message field, in case you want to force it, you can do something like end message end, and I'm searching for that. Okay, so let's say I want to look for this word in particularly. Oh, let me grab this word, and I want to look for this wording particularly: Marketo dash forms dash and dash tracking. Very important because of the tokenization, as I mentioned in the message field. The symbol right here, the minus, is actually tokenized. So if I want to look for that specifically, what I want to do is put between quotes, and I would search exactly as it is. Okay, if I actually search this way, I potentially could get some fake results, depending if those words are in the message field itself. So you want to make sure that you can narrow down. As you can see, the number of hits that I got actually has changed. That's because the results potentially can be altered. So if you're looking for exactly for a specific word, just make sure you put them between quotes. Okay? And once again, if I do Marketo and I just do an asterisk is a way to do a wildcard. Put this right there, and boom, you will say anything is Marketo, as you can see, .js and so on and so forth. All right, guys, so as you can see, I had a saved search already. I know exactly the one I'm looking for is this webinar for EOB. And once again, I'm back with the saved searches that I had saved for this. And I'm going to be using this to further look into visualizations. So just so we can actually be on track, here the Kibana searches, I will be sending this for you guys, is that we have free text search, which has been covered already. The field level search, doing a search exactly this way or using filtering. So as you can see, those are the basic ways to search through your data, or also just use free text search. If this is something very important, we offer this as a service. If you're searching something within your logs and you're typing something in, and you personally were expecting to have different results, but you're seeing something completely different, please feel free to reach out to our support team. We would be happy to look into the search with you and understand if you can give us the example of the log that you're potentially looking for, that you want as a result only. We can actually help you designing this search. There's ways for you to use regex, for you to search your logs as well. This is something that has been covered on our advanced search webinar. And once again, I'll make sure to put a link to that on our recap email to all of you guys. But with that in mind, if you would need some help searching your logs or you're expecting different results, our support team is here to assist you with this. So is your customer success engineer, someone like myself that will be happy to jump on the call with you and kind of help you customizing your environment and learning how to properly search your logs as well. Lastly, what I want to cover is the Kibana visualization. So we're going to look into some visualization types using the saved searches, as I have saved one, how that goes into the dashboards. And quickly, I'm going to cover the ELK apps as a starting point as well. All right, so let's go back to Logz.io. As I mentioned, if I click on a field, I can click on visualize and I can quickly get a visualization. But let's say you want to design something yourself, something from scratch, all right? We can do that. But before I go into customizing it, what Logz.io has done for you is that we have created something called the ELK apps. What the ELK apps are is already pre-built visualizations, dashboards, and searches that you can actually use right out of the box. As an example, if you remember, I had this list open for you guys with already pre-built, pre-configured log types, and most of those log types have something already on the list of the ELK app. So you can come here and just type a word. For example, and I can click on visualizations or dashboards, and I can see exactly the options that I have. From here, what I would do is once that has been loaded, I would be able to come here. This is the one that we have for Apache logs. So just by clicking on it, I would see already this pre-built dashboard. Logs are being sent in, they're Apache logs. I click on Logz Apps, install it, and all of a sudden I don't have to do anything else. I already have something out of the box that I can use. So if you are interested, please go to Logz Apps, type a word for the type of log that you have. If there's something already designed, it will be listed right here. We are revamping Logz Apps this year. We are going to be adding a lot more details there, a lot of new dashboards, and recustomizing some of the dashboards that we currently have, because we do believe that this can add a lot of value to your day-to-day, because you don't have to build something yourself from scratch. You can start with something like this and customize it also after you understand how to do so. But let's look into how we can get to something as simple as this, customizing the logs myself. So let's start in the visualization. When you click on visualize, you're going to see something like this. Of course, we have a variety of visualizations already created, but I want to create something right now from scratch. What I'm going to do is click on the little plus right here, and this will give me a variety of visualization types. As you can see, I have maps, time series, others, and basic charts and data. Today I'm going to be covering, if time allows, I see I have about 10 minutes at 3 different types of visualizations. I'm going to start with the very basic one. It's how I start with everybody. I usually will start with a pie chart. So the reason I start with a pie chart, because it's extremely simple and it will give you a good snapshot of how your logs are being aggregated. Click on the pie. From here, I have 2 options. I can use my index. Your index is all of the logs currently ingested into Logz.io. Or I can use a saved search. If you remember, I created a saved search called webinar EOB. So by clicking on this, as you can see now, this is linked to the saved search, webinar EOB. And in case I want to break this to kind of see what this webinar EOB is all about, I can double click it and it breaks it. So as you can see, it's unlinked now. However, let's go back. Let's type webinar EOB, and now once again, my data is already being broken down. If I wanted to, as you can see, I have this search right here, and the add filter. I could just use my whole index and filter directly from here, but it's a lot easier to see the results in the Discover as a starting point, save it, and then come here and create visualizations based on that. Just to kind of give you a breakdown of what we are looking into right now, I have this huge circle, which is a count, and currently I'm looking at the last 15 minutes of logs. So if I hover the mouse over the circle, I can see that the count is equal to 17. What that means is that in the last 15 minutes, based on that filter that I'm actually using right now, I had 17 log lines that have been ingested. If I come here and changing, let's say, this to the last hour, and hovering the mouse over the circle again, I can see that the count has increased because it tells me that 69 new logs have been ingested. So what I may want to do here is split the slices. By doing so, my bucket right now is the count, and I don't have any aggregation. So what I'm going to do is add an aggregation. By choosing the word terms, it allows me to choose a field. And from there, what I want to do is use my backend status code, and I want to see how that's broken down. As you can see, currently I'm only getting 404s, but if you remember, I'm actually using this webinar EOB. So let's break it just to see what happens. As you can see, now I have all of the results. So maybe I go like, you know what? I actually want to keep an eye on my 300s, but not the 200s. So what I would do is just make sure that I add the type EOB, because I want to make sure that this filter is used. And I go like, all right, I don't want anything under 200. And what I'm going to do is just go backend, status code is not in between 299, and I'll save it. And all of a sudden I go like, all right, this is great. That's exactly what I want. This is what I want to build out my visualizations on this. I had 2 options. One, I could have gone back into the Discover and saved my new search exactly like this, and every single visualization would now reflect, or I can just do the filtering directly from here. Okay, excellent. Now that I have the results that I want to save this. But also to give you a breakdown, if I hover the mouse over the values that I have, I will see the count. As you can see, 404 with 67, for 301 was 300 logs that have been ingested, and for this right here, the value was 304. So now I have a breakdown, and the advantage of actually having a breakdown like this is that I can click on the value. As you can see, I can add a positive and a negative filter directly into those values as well. So let's save this. I want to actually add this to my pie chart, to my dashboard, and I'm going to create 2 more visualizations quickly with you guys, and let's quickly create a dashboard as well. So come here, once again, line chart. I'm going to type webinar. I'm going to filter this data. If you remember, this is filtered data. Once again, it will be anything that is not in a range that is above the 400 errors. So potentially I may want to change that again to be more reflective of the other, but let's do something a little different here. And to start off, once again, there's a little circle on this graph. This is all the logs that have been ingested, which is about 80 logs in the last hour or so. The first thing I'm going to do is that the x-axis on the bottom has all of my logs. I'm going to add something called a date histogram. By quickly clicking on play, I now have a breakdown of how the logs are being ingested by minute. As you can see, I'm looking at the logs the last hour, but each point right here is 1 minute of logs. That represents a count. But what I want to do now is add a new sub bucket. I'm going to split the series. I'm going to quickly go through this, choose terms, and once again, I'm going to do backend status code, click play, and now I have 404 errors that are coming through. All right, let's save this. Line chart. And lastly, what I want to do with you guys is just show you how you can do a data table. I'm going to do the type webinar ELB. And from here, once again, 82 logs that have been ingested in the last hour. And I'm going to split the rows. The first aggregation, I'm going to use terms, which allows me to choose a field. And this time, I'm actually going to choose request. I'm going to click play. As you can see, I have the request, and here's the count. And I know that this, in particular, is only 404. But let's say I had anything, my filter says anything over 400 errors. So it could be different. So what I can do as well is split the rows, add another aggregation here, which I'm going to choose terms, and I'm going to choose the backend status code. And by clicking play, again, as you can see, I will have the values that are relevant to this specific request and the count. So if I had other backend status codes coming through, they would be listed on this here as well. So I'm going to do webinar ELB table. I'm going to save it. And then one thing before I move forward with this is that every single bucket aggregation has a size. I left all my sizes to 5. So as you can see, I only have 5 results. But if I wanted more, I could just change that value, click play, and I get the other results as well. All right. So now that we have built 3 different visualizations, let's add everything into a dashboard. To build a dashboard is very simple. Click on the plus. It will take me into a brand new dashboard. I click on the add. I'm going to type webinar. And so maybe I want to filter it to ELB. All right. There you go. They're right here. Those are the 3 visualizations I have built. I'm going to add them to this dashboard by clicking on them. So the table, the pie chart, and the line chart. All right. Now, what I can do if I want to, I can easily customize them by changing the size and so on and so forth. I could easily move this to the right and expand this because let's say my data table is the one that I want to keep an eye on it. And then I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this dashboard or webinar ELV dashboard and save it. Now I have everything in one panel of glass. I can see the table, I can see the pie chart, and I can see the line chart. Let's say I want to investigate now. Now that I have everything in one place, the power of the dashboard is that the dashboard is interactive. And as I start interacting with the data here, it will narrow down the information for me. So if I come into the line chart one, I could just click on something. I can just narrow down my time. What you will notice is that the time has changed from 1 hour to exactly the time frame I chose. I can then say, all right, I want to investigate this request in particularly. I'm going to add that to the filter. And now I can see exactly, potentially I have one count, and I can see exactly when this failed. And then from there, I can pin this information over and come back to discover, and I can see exactly what's the log line that was generated, exactly when that problem happened with the help of my dashboard. So guys, we have 1 minute left. I hope this was a good webinar for you guys and a good starting point. Once again, if you need help from us, please reach out to our support team through the chat bubble. Email us at help@Logz.io. I'm sorry I didn't get to your questions today, but once again, we'll reach out to you over email, answering all of your questions. And if you like any help from our support team or your customer success engineer, if you're a customer today, that kind of training is at no additional cost to you. Please reach out. I'll be more than happy to assist. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us, and you guys have a great day.